All righty, well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to week 8 of our 10-week licensing lunch and learn. I'm glad to see returning folks who've been with us since week 1. So that tells me that you're gathering good information as you prepare to study for your licensing exam. Today, we're focusing on still more clinical content. Actually, this is our last week to go over the 4 areas of the clinical content that's on the exam. And this week, we're focusing on professional values and ethics, which is questions that you may appear on your exam. So we have Dr. Faye Keys and Dr. Shirley Thomas, who are well-renowned faculty members who are going to give you information and resources on how to approach questions that are dealing with professional values and ethics. I will turn it over to them now. I'll be on for just a little while in case you all have questions about the licensing lunch and learn. You can put those in the chat. Also, remember to put your first and last name in the chat so that we can track attendance, because you may have forgotten, but at our 10th session, we're going to do some giveaways for those who have been traveling with us for the entire 10 weeks. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Keys.
Okay, hello, and welcome. I'm so excited and happy for you to be at this juncture of this Lunch and Learn, the 8th week. Dr. Thomas and I are here today to chat with you about professional values and ethics. Now, we've got a long PowerPoint, but we've made this long PowerPoint so that you would have a resource to guide you once this lunch and learn. We realize we only have an hour and you may have questions or want access to the information that we used in this learning experience. So moving right along, I'm going to ask Dr. Thomas to introduce herself.
I'm Dr. Shirley Thomas, and I am I'm a clinical faculty member here, and I have been here for many years. I'm also the outgoing MSW director, so this last semester of doing that position. So I also welcome you, and I realize the challenge people have in taking the exam, but I also know a lot of people who have passed the exam, so it's very doable, and I welcome you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's talk about it. What has been how many people today, with a show of hands, have picked up the Code of Ethics because we were going to be talking about them? Or it?
No one? Do you have it from the past? Boy.
Yeah. If you'd like, take this opportunity to pull it up. We have—
Oh, one person has it.
Oh, one person has it. Oh, wonderful. We have many links to the Code of Ethics throughout this PowerPoint presentation.
I guess one of the questions I have too is when do you plan on taking the exam? You might want to unmute yourself and just shout it out for me. I mean, is it within a year, within 2 years?
April.
April? Okay.
Natalie, June or July.
All right.
Hi, Dr. Thomas.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing fine,
Oh, good.
Thank you all for this. Thank you for the 8 weeks, the 10 weeks of preparation.
Oh, good. So you're finding it helpful?
Very helpful.
Oh, good. Oh, good. What about you, Shandia? Is that Shandia? When do you plan on taking it? July and August. Okay. All right. Well, that was good to know.
All right. So the exam requires that you are familiar with and you're able to apply professional social work ethics standards. The exam is 25%. That's 25% of the 100. And
So that's one of the reasons why we are focusing on that, is because sometimes, because it's values and ethics, people can get a little confused about that. So, but it is important, and it's 25% of your grade.
and there's a possible, I went through and counted them, there's a possible 38 different areas that they will test you on that will make up this 25%. So we have a link into those particular areas here. Uh-oh.
What is this?
I don't know.
That's my, oof, that was spooky.
Yeah, you know, I think
I lost the slide, Faye.
okay, I'm
Did you
going,
change the view possibly?
you know, I'm not quite sure what I touched. I think I did.
Maybe
So,
up in the right corner, the view.
okay, great. Do you have it now?
Yeah, we have everybody's picture. I mean, everybody's name.
Okay, so let me get
So
out.
we just need to the screen back.
Okay, let me get here and share it back. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, great. But let me move things around so I don't end up touching anything I shouldn't touch. All righty. So the Code of Ethics sets forth the values, the principles, and the standards. Let's talk a bit about the difference between the values, principles, and standards. Is there anyone that could tell me what the values are?
You know, you don't have to be shy.
And you know what I always tell my students, if you're sitting there with your cell phone, now would be a good time to take it out and use it. The one thing is that you'll get used to using it. So when you have a question in your mind about the Code of Ethics, you're walking down the street or you're thinking about human development, whatever you're thinking about, hey, just pick up your phone and say, hey, what are the values for the Code of Ethics? What are the principles? What are the standards? What's the difference between the three? Okay, so hopefully we will, throughout this presentation, you will begin to understand the three. And so let's move on. I'll be careful with where okay, so the core values of social work, the ethical principles, and the standards. When you get this PowerPoint, you can click here and it will explain to you what those, the difference is. I will have a really nice PDF from the National Association of Social Workers, and it's set up to just outline and explain all three of these for you.
And so it's important too to remember that the profession has values and ethics and standards. That's what makes it a profession.
Okay, great. So we're going to take a quick look at this video here, and it will help explain the three to you.
There's no audio to this video, right, Faye?
Right. This is to help with your speed reading as you take the test.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. There we go.
Oops.
I don't know. Need Kim here. Is this, can you see now?
I just see a black screen. What do you guys see?
Black screen
Okay.
with the menu at the top.
Oh,
Hmm,
there we go.
no, not. Okay,
Just share screen.
okay. Well, actually. Oh, I'm getting a sign that there's a problem with Microsoft PowerPoint is closed. We apologize for the inconvenience. Oh, good, that's not me.
And you know I can't help you with this part.
No, I got it.
But did that little short video spark any memories in you about, say, the core values of social work that you probably were asked to memorize the entire time you were in the program? Guess not.
Yes, of course. I'm still in the program though, and I'm driving, so I'm not talking that much. But yeah, I didn't read the video, but I remember the core values over time through the program.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Because I always ask my students to memorize those. You can just unmute when you feel like speaking, or you can just leave it unmute until, because there's not that many of us, unless you just feel uncomfortable doing that.
Let's try this again. So I'm not. Oh,
Do you think it would work if we say share screen again?
well,
No?
first I have to get it. It's not on my desktop, so I have to get it on my.
What is this up here? It says recording, and then the next one over says presentation. Go back. Oh, there you go. There it
No.
is.
No, that's
Another one.
yeah, that's yeah. Very strange.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
So,
can't.
hold on here. Let's go down here and see.
Yeah. Thank you, Amanda, for your comments. Let's see who. I see something now.
Oh, yes, I'm getting it. Let's see here.
There it is.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. I'm not sure what happened. I'm glad I didn't introduce myself as the coordinator of education technology. Huh?
Right. I'm glad you're here because you know I wouldn't have gotten that. So
Okay.
should we go to the next slide?
This is it, just a recap of the topics that's going to be on the exam and how they relate to the things that you do. You might not have thought of them as values, principles, but they are the legal responsibilities that you have to your clients, co-workers, the profession, and such as confidentiality, reporting and record keeping, and all of that good stuff. But the most important thing that I think that they just recently added when they redid the codes in 21 was the self-care component. And once again,
Yes.
this exam is 25%. And I'm not sure Shirley, what's the pass rate? I know back when I took it, it was 75%, but that was a long time ago
For the
for the exam here in Michigan.
I can't tell you exactly.
Okay, so, but 75% is a significant portion of it.
Pass rate. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. So can anyone tell us what the core values are?
Yes, the PowerPoint will be shared.
Okay, well, this page here, the slide here, just reminds you what the core values are. So we'll see this over and over and over. Okay, we'll go right along to the next one. Now you want to take a moment and read this slide. And one of the tips I can give you about taking the exam is being able to read and alleviate the ands, ifs, and buts. So you can just look at the paragraph. So you might want to check YouTube and look at a video for speed reading. And that will also help because then you'll be more relaxed because you're not worrying about taking in line by line when you can read the paragraph.
The most important thing is to know the information and to stay relaxed or stay calm as much as you can. And if you've taken the exam before, they say the best way to pass it, if you take it before and you want to take it again, is to do a study plan that's completely different from the first one you did, because it does require some active studying and active working. And all of these slides that you're going to be getting will help you with that.
Okay, so we've got our first case.
Do you
Thomas?
do you think I should read it, Faye?
What does the participants say?
Are they willing to read it themselves?
I think it will help with their test taking. Should they read it?
Okay, okay.
Then
I agree, but I didn't want the.
Yeah, then they themselves can kind of gauge where their reading and comprehension off the screen is, because that's really important in terms of taking the exam, is to be able to read that, process, and then move down and address the question.
Okay. So start reading.
Okay, you can read it if you like, Dr. Thomas.
No.
You guys ready to talk about it? And we were just talking earlier about reading and subtitles on the television. as you prepare to take the exam, you might want to add the subtitles to the television because that'll help you speed up your reading and comprehension, and just, without any active on your part, it will just become subconscious. Subconsciously, you'll look at something and you'll read it, and that will help passing the exam. All right, are we ready, Dr. Thomas?
Yeah, any comments? Oh, here we go. Go ahead.
Okay.
So what do you think about the first one? What ethical responsibility should the clinician have considered prior to attending the graduation party? Are you out there?
Yes, I'm trying to see if that would be, I don't think it's a conflict of interest. However, I think the second one would apply, that there should have been a conversation prior to, but I'm not sure. It's kind of a fine line because you're not going there socially, I guess. So I don't know. I'm sorry. Oh,
Mhm. What
Mm.
about anyone else have a comment about that?
well, it might be a
I-
conflict.
Oh,
Melanie Cook?
yes. I think that what ethical responsibilities should the clinician have considered prior to attending the graduation party? I think there are boundary issues with her attending from what I've gathered, is that there are boundary issues with her attending the party in the first place.
Anyone else have a comment? So the rest of you, what are you thinking?
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay. So I'm thinking I had a situation like this.
Mhm.
So in the situation, I've worked with my clients for a long period of time, about 8 years. And it's during and they had a birthday event. And then we have some of our clients who have family members, if they pass away, will ask us to attend funerals. So there was, I'm glad this came up because I'm not functioning as a therapist. My capacity is the case manager with my clients in that relationship. But I attended the event because I've worked with the client for a long period of time. And I attended under the assumption that I was still a representative of my agency, not as a relationship between me and the client, but as a person of the agency. And my thought process and conversation was this: I'm here as a representative of the agency, and I maintained a level of professionalism while I was there. Now, do I know if that's a good question? Ethics, was I ethical for supporting my client, or just being a representative and support my client, saying, hey, we only have this relationship here, but I can't support any other type of things that's going on in your life?
Mhm.
Did you think about the code of ethics when you went? It sounds like you did, because you made a conscious decision to go there as an agent, as a representative of your agency.
Right, and I did, and I looked at it in the perspective of the agency that I work with too, as far as in terms of, the boundaries. What are the boundaries in terms of, like I said, I'm gonna use an example of, I work with disabled adults, and a lot of my adults, they may pass away. So I get an invitation to the funeral from the family member who's been caring for the person that's sick. So You know, ethics do fall into it, but I just, in my opinion, that as a social worker, as a human being, I try to look at people in a functioning manner of functioning and establishing a relationship where being a support person. And that's why I went to the event.
Oh, thank you.
And then someone in chat, in the chat had some comments too. Faye, did you see those?
Well, no, I did not.
I think it's, I can't pronounce your name. I don't want to. It says, my understanding is that there should be clear boundaries between client and social worker. They are not to attend things on a personal invite, as not to blur the line of relationships. And then some people agreed with her or
Mhm.
him. And the thing is, I was wondering when the other is Melody was talking and or whoever was talking, that if you work with people and like if you work in hospice or if you work with people who are going to pass away, would you attend their funeral? I mean, do you think that's
I just
unethical?
No, I don't. For me, I don't think personally, but as it relates to the code of ethics, we had one of our clients who did pass away, and her children are also being treated at our clinic, and they called and asked for us to come, and of course we asked, "What are we coming as? A friend that know you, as whatever representing the agency?" And they said, "No, you are our therapist." But I said, I can't say that when I come up. So when we went up, we said, well, we've known this person for 8 years. And, you know, we offered our condolences that we were representing the agency. When the daughter got up there, she said, "This is our therapist." She said it.
Well, she can say that.
That's exactly it. And I did not feel uncomfortable with that because we asked before, what are we coming as?
Right.
You know, so I think the second question you asked, what did you clear this with the client before? What am I coming to do?
Right.
Did we have this conversation? You know, we offer our condolences or whatever, but then when she got up, she was so happy that we were there because, you know, we had offered them all this help during the years, and both the mother who was deceased and she and her twin sister were receiving therapy from our clinic. She said it, I didn't.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
and that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Faye.
Thank you for sharing. Okay.
Yes.
And once again, this slide here explains the principles, and there's a link to the code of ethics for you. Okay, second case.
So what is the appropriate?
Well, see, that's one of the things about ethics that is very difficult sometimes to determine what is ethical and what is not.
Because
yeah,
it says, although the above example may seem like a minor ethical concern, there's no way of knowing what extent the clinician, social worker handling of the situation may or how impact the client, which reinforces the notion that social work professionals must act in care with concern regardless of the professional organization. There's a reoccurring theme regarding the development and the maintenance of ethical standards that protects both parties. So
right.
I think as many of the folks shared is, you know, they consciously thought about the code of ethics and what their role would be in that particular situation. And I think every situation is different and every relationship is different. And so you have to come back to the code of ethics, and based on that particular situation, then you address them as you'll find on the exam. There'll be a lot of questions like that. And you're going to have to rely on knowing the values, the principles, and the standards.
Okay, so the answer, so let's be clear, because see, I don't like to be confused. So to be clear, are you saying do not attend the funeral, or you attend the funeral?
No.
Hold on, let me finish. Do not attend the funeral, or attend the funeral And with the idea of knowing that it's just the parents or the people that are there just wanted you there just for support. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I'm saying that every situation is different. Someone shared with us they're attending a funeral and how their clients addressed the situation. They being there, they were there to support, but the client acknowledged that. So it's just going to be really different depending on the situation. So
But for a test, why would you answer that?
But see, for a test, that wouldn't be the way the question would be phrased. It would be multiple choice answers that you have. And so you would go over each of those choices and make the best decision for that scenario.
Okay, let's move to some questions like that. But that question requires that you know the values,
Right.
principles, and the standards. So you know which situation you're entering and which situation that would apply to. So it says, you know, here, that's an ethical standard question. Okay, so we'll go, we do have some questions.
Here you go. Question 1. A social worker has just published a book and has an overflow of referrals to her private practice. So she has begun to share the referrals with colleagues, asking 10% of the first session's fee is in return. According to the NASW Code of Ethics, this is ethical as long as the social worker is providing clients with at least 3 referrals. Ethical because the social worker is only taking a one-time referral fee. Ethical because the social worker is sharing the referrals among several appropriate colleagues. Ethical due to potential conflict of interest.
What say you?
Are you out there?
I think it would be unethical to just share it with colleagues, because if persons were contacting that particular social worker based on the book, where's the permission to forward that on to other persons? And then you're asking for a fee. So I think that, in my opinion, based on the Code of Ethics, that would be D. It would be unethical due to a conflict of interest, because my concern would be disclose, like, does the client know that their information, even if it's just a name or what have you, is being forwarded to someone else? That's one reason.
Right, and that is correct.
Says here, the Code of Ethics states that social workers are prohibited from giving or receiving payment for referral when no professional service is provided by the referring social worker. So she wasn't going to provide a service. She was just charging them for referring people to them. And so that was unethical based on the Code of Ethics. So that's why you need to read over those Code of Ethics and standards and really understand them. And maybe memorize some of them.
Okay. The next question?
Mm-hmm. On a blind date, a social worker realizes that the person she is on the date with is the sibling of a client. How should the social worker proceed? Cut the date short, explaining that it would be inappropriate to date the sibling of a client. Cut the date short to avoid a potential breach in confidentiality. Finish the date, but refuse further dates with the client's sibling. Continue dating, taking care not to disclose the social worker's relationship with the sibling. What do you guys think?
I'll let somebody else go, but I would say B.
B, and then Haley says A.
I said B.
And I said B because A, you're disclosing to the sibling that the sibling is actually a client anyway.
Client. Interesting.
I mean, yeah.
So what did I hear? An A and B, or you're
Uh-huh.
eliminating them?
Did anybody say C or D? Well, one thing you can do is also rule out things that you think does make no sense, like D, continue dating, taking care not to disclose the social worker's relationship. I mean, that's not really real. That's out, don't you think?
Unrealistic, I think.
Yeah, I think that one's out.
Okay. Would you say the same for A? Cut the date short, but explaining that it would be inappropriate to date the sibling of the client. But here, as someone mentioned earlier, you're disclosing confidential information. So we cut A out, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. What about B? Do we cut that out or do we leave that in?
I would leave that in.
Do you leave that in?
But what about C? Would you finish the date? What if they bought you a nice dinner? Wouldn't you eat the food first and then cut it short? Or what would you do?
For me, that would be
Go ahead.
because this date where I know what the conflict is, and I'm still trying to finish this date, that this is not going to work. So I would say B.
Okay, let's see.
Because technically, oh, go ahead. I was gonna say finish it. Oh, C is the answer. Oh wow.
I was thinking about if it's an interesting date, but how would they know anyway that that's your siblings?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, you could just finish and then not tell them at all and just complete a date and then just don't go anymore. But well, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
we might want to mute our you might want to put our
Our mutes back on.
Yeah. That's
I have
what
a question. Oh.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. So even in looking at the code of ethics, because I know it does talk about a dual relationship, and it's also addresses, with your client specifically and not necessarily their sibling, but we know that could become a problem. So, and this is where the test really kind of gets me, because, and maybe I'm too rigid, but I would feel that once there's a potential, of a conflict of interest or breaching confidentiality, I think that it's best to cut it off. I don't know, maybe that's part of my problem because I have taken the exam before, and I'm.
What's your question?
No, not to cut you off, but when you approach the exam, don't approach the exam as to what your answer would be.
Okay. Right.
Exam is what would the average person, because these exams
Social
are
worker.
based
Right.
on the average. What would be the expectation of a social worker?
Right. Looking at it from a general standpoint as opposed to
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
let's go very broad. And so
Gotcha.
what I'm saying is here to avoid a breach of confidentiality, because we never know what may happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Okay.
don't want to wait until it happens. We want to avoid that, and by avoiding that, we finish the date and we don't see that particular person again.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's the use of your critical thinking skills too. It's because it's not about what you would think as much as it is about the field. And what is what's, as Faye said, what's going on in the field.
Okay, question number 3.
A social worker has been treating a depressed adult client who has expressed feelings of jealousy and anger at her sibling. Now the client's sibling has contacted the social worker and asked to enter treatment with the social worker to resolve an eating disorder. What is the best response? Treat the sibling and maintain confidentiality by not telling the other original client? Engage the two siblings in family therapy? Refer the sibling to another qualified mental health professional for assistance? And ask the original client for permission to work with her sibling? Gosh, what would you guys think? What do you think?
Now remember, the question says, what is the best response?
Yes. What is the best response? Amanda says C.
I would say C.
Okay, Lita says C.
Thinking A wouldn't necessarily.
C.
We have a lot of C's coming.
All right.
Because A wouldn't necessarily, I mean, you, as long as it's confidential. Yeah, I was gonna say, okay. Two answers.
C.
Yep.
A
So-
clinician should never deceive a client or put the client in the position of having to make ethical decisions. Therefore, referring the sibling out is the most responsible of these options. You know, that would be better, because when you work with clients like that and you get a sibling, you know they're going to talk to each other.
Right.
That's not going to be good. So I think C is good.
Okay. Next question.
A Christian social worker disagrees with the NASW's position supporting marriage equality. The social worker has a female client who plans to marry a woman and reports feeling very anxious about it. How should the social worker proceed? Refer the client to a social worker who supports marriage equality? Help the client explore her anxiety about marrying a woman? Continue to see the client despite the conflict in beliefs? Seek supervision regarding whether to follow NASW's or the church's guideline. Now, this happens all the time.
To A. Refer the
the client
to the social worker who supports marriage equality. I mean, I would just say another social worker, not necessarily just who supports marriage equality, but another social worker.
And what would be your reasons for that?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, it's like you're making, I don't know, it's like you're being, not I want to say being biased, because that person is seeking that and would gain support from someone who agrees with it. But I think just in general, well, I guess A would be fine. I mean, I guess that would be the best option if you had that information, but someone who doesn't support it necessarily could probably be objective. I'm not sure, you know, so.
All right. All right. Now answer that question with how should the social worker proceed? Not what you think, but how should a social worker proceed? Answer that way. So we're talking about all social workers. How should the social worker? Because we can't bring our biases into it, right? So how?
Kamiko said B or D.
I would say B, because I have to treat that client regardless of how I feel. Probably later on the line, if it gets too complicated, then to tell my supervisor I'm comfortable with it. But basically, I would think it would be, oh, I would say B. Okay, help the client.
And so this one says, continue to see. Yeah, the client despite the conflicts in belief.
And
it's the best course here. Social workers should uphold and advance the values, ethics, knowledge, and mission of the profession. This social worker would be behaving unethically to bring her personal values into her work with this client.
But I mean, how could she objectively, if she's already saying that she has she disagreed, even though, of course, you may not agree with a lot of behaviors that you're helping individuals with. And yes, you're supposed to remain objective. However, I think it is dependent upon the situation, just like someone who may have had.
Let me stop you right there. Because when you're taking the exam, don't take the exam from the position of what I think and what I feel. Look at it from very broadly. What would the average social worker do? What am I supposed to?
And what is the code of ethics? I mean, what is the standard? What does it say?
What am I supposed to do? Not how
Okay, this
Excuse
is
me,
how
I
I
have a
looked at it.
question.
This is how I looked at it. I look at it like, okay, not trying to be funny or anything, but when it comes to that situation myself, I look at it, you're not going to always have someone to turn that person to, so you got to do it any old way. So you put your biases aside, or your whatever is bothering you about it, and just do what you got to do. Now, if you need somebody else to help you along the way, yeah, ask somebody to come in and sit with you, so you won't be that person that's annoying, or making them feel uncomfortable because of the questions that you ask them. But if there's nobody there, you're gonna have to do it anyways. That's how you have to look at that question, because it doesn't matter. I don't care what job you have. If you're a teacher, you still got to deal with that kid that is gay, lesbian, whatever it is. You still got to deal with it. So, and you got to just work through it. That's all. That's how I look at it. That's the only question that I look at like that.
But
Yeah,
I
I
have
think-
a question about just how the question reads, though, in the responses. And I've been doing a lot of studying with the books and the questions. So I really wanted to tune in on this, because B and C are, to me, essentially almost saying the same thing. Now, I agree with C, but I see a lot of these questions that are coming in like this as I'm taking the practice exams and whatnot. And it says that B wasn't the best answer because the client has not voiced anxiety specifically. But then I'm going back up to the question.
Yes.
And she came in saying that she felt anxious. So
About
it. So
But-
that's what made me go to B as far as, and B and C is the better answer now that I'm reading it, but I want to stop being so fast with this and try to get more clarity about the responses and the answers.
All right, because the questions ask you, not about her anxiety. The questions ask you, or her feeling anxious, it asks you, how should the social worker proceed? And so that's what, when you look at the options, the option was, how should the social worker proceed? Should the social worker refer the client out? Should the social worker help the client explore? Should the social worker continue to see the client despite? Should the social worker seek supervision? So you've got to remember, we talked about that when we talked about understanding the question and how to read the question. So we want to focus on two things: what the question is asking us to do. Does it want us to do it first? Does it want us to proceed? What's the best response? So we want to address the question from that position. Then we want to say, okay, what would the average, what would the common, what would the profession expect me to do? So it's not about what you would do based on your experience, but it's about what is expected based on our code of ethics, what is expected for us to handle. So we take our biases out.
I wanted to say something. Okay, Faye, the other thing is, the social worker has a female client who plans to marry a woman and reports feeling very anxious about it. One of the things is that you want to look at all of the choices that you have. It's like Dr. Keys said, you know, how should the social worker proceed? Well, first, you just got to continue to see that client, right? Now, what is one of the issues you might want to cover is her anxiety. And it might not be about marrying a woman. We don't know, but we know she has some anxieties. But that won't be the first thing. The first thing the social worker needs to do is to continue.
So B is assuming?
B, well, it could be assuming, but that's not where the social worker is supposed to proceed. See, the question is, well, where would you proceed? Well, I would continue to see the client. See, when you look at all the options, would you refer the client out? No. Help her to explore her anxieties about marrying a woman, possibly. Continue to see the client. Well, yeah, that's the first thing you're going to do.
Well, and I agree. Now that you explained it like that, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and that's why I was speaking up on it too, because I think, with myself, just making sure that I'm connecting, the social worker's conflict and C. So just kind of making sure, like, I'm picking up on that.
Well, the other thing is that you don't want to think too much.
Right,
you don't want to think too much.
exactly.
When you start thinking a lot, it's time to turn it off.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas, because when you explain C,
we had
it implies B as well.
I'm sorry.
Continue with her so that I can treat that.
Erica, could you mute when you're not speaking, please? Because we're getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to understand.
Yeah, when you're speaking, we don't hear the feedback, but if you're just unmuted and not speaking, it's a lot of feedback. So thank you. Thank you.
We have about 2 minutes, so I want to take the time and run you through this PowerPoint. I'm sorry about that glitch, but we have additional questions with explanations of why it's the best answer. And like this one here, we're looking at the answer for number 5. It says, how should the social worker respond? So I would encourage you to go back to Dr. Thomas and I presentation on how to break down the questions, review that before you start studying for this particular section. And then keep in mind, after the question, after that period, how should the social worker respond? So when you are answering this question, you're looking to find out, how should I respond? How should the profession respond? Okay, so we have quite a few questions there, even some good stuff on social media. Understanding what the dilemma is and how to go through that process here. We have some steps for handling ethical dilemmas. This is from the NASW website. Talking about social media, I would probably gather there will be quite a few questions on social media and technology, because that's relatively new to our profession. 10 years ago, we couldn't even email a client, but now we interact with clients in various ways here. Here's a practice exam for you, more of what we were just going through, and just understanding, focus on the rationale. And here's some additional resources. Here's a study guide for the licensure exam. Here's an acronym that one of my students put together for understanding the values. So you might want to, as you practice the values, standards, and principles, come up with an acronym that will help you remember them, so that as you address the question, you'll know that, okay, this is a principle issue. Okay, this is a core value issue. Again, here are more practice tests and questions that you may have. 10 common mistakes to avoid. And we've got a wealth of videos. I like this one in particular because it goes through all the principles and standards one by one with examples. And this one here kind of does the same thing, but shows you in a shorter way. And here's tips for studying. Again, and additional resources. So we hope that you find these resources in this PowerPoint helpful as you go through your journey for preparing for this exam. But as I told you last time, you got this. You can do it. But the most important thing to remember is that they are looking to see how we, as a group of social workers, would answer these questions. Dr. Thomas?
Yep. And the other thing is some people have done, and I don't know if this is possible nowadays, is they put things on a, well, you don't have CDs anymore, but whatever you do and you record yourself like on your phone, and when you're driving, you can play it back to yourself so that you can hear the standards over and over, and the code, service, social justice, competence, you know what they are, and you hear them over and over. And you can do that for all of these 8 sessions. That would help too, if you want to do that.
Yeah, and one thing I did when I was studying for the exam, and that was so long ago that we had cassettes. So I'm a walker, so I would walk and just let the cassette play. And so you can do that or decide that, okay, today I'm going to study ethics, right? And there's a sheet in here that shows you all of the different components of the ethics exam. And so you know what you have to know. And just spend a week studying ethics, spend a week studying a human development, spend a week just reviewing, spend a week relaxing, take up yoga, mindfulness, meditation, stretching. The most important thing is to have control of self. Spend some time with self-care, understanding self-care. I think that may be a big part of the exam. What's new? There is a link that tells you how the the code of ethics was revised back in 21. So you want to focus on, okay, what did they add? What do they think is important? If you see down here, this link here will take you to the code of ethics and talk about the revisions of the code of ethics. And so those things that they've just added in there, like self-care and culture humility, that was added in. And this is an interview, so this is a podcast. So there's a lot of interviews and videos and things to help. Sometimes we get tired of reading. So learn how you best learn and do the things you say you want to do. I think you can do it. And
Hey, Faye, how do they get this? How do they get this PowerPoint and all the other PowerPoints? One person said she hasn't received any.
Oh, no, I sent it to Kim and I saw that Kim had sent it out.
Yes, Kim and I, either Kim or I'll put my video back on. Either Kim or I will distribute it to the participants. Last week's resources have not come through yet. And so we're still waiting on those, and those will get sent out along with Dr. Thomas and Dr. Key's resources, which are fabulous. And thank you for all those and the good tips for studying, and very appreciate the
One last tip, Teresa, I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
But I know you've already heard this, but if you can hook up with people in these different sessions and create a study group for yourself, that would help. It would be nice to get someone who focuses on child welfare, gerontology, policy, whatever, just a mixture of people so that you can prepare. It will help you prepare.
Yeah, group work.
Yeah, accountability. Yeah. It will help you because life gets in the way, and we've got dedicated for studying, but then here comes life. So yeah, that accountability. Yeah, take time out to do the things you say you want to do. And that is pass this exam. I believe you can do it.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty.
Thanks, everyone.